Seems like it's hard to get parking spaces.
It is, man.
It is 12:05, Thursday, December 9th. We'll call this meeting to order and we'll start off by roll call. Do you guys have the roll call on file?
We do. So we have Cesar Garay.
Present.
John Villarreal.
Here.
Arturo Dominguez.
Here.
Rafael Dueñas.
Here.
Julian Radnowski.
Here.
George Allgilt.
He'll be here.
Elia Guevara, she sent in a request. She's out sick, so she's going to miss this meeting. Mayra Hernandez.
Present.
And Ray Rocha.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is the approval of minutes for November 2021.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion by Mr. Dominguez. Is there a second? Second by Mayra. Any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Any against? None against. Motion carries. And do we have any citizen comments?
No, Mr. Chairman, at the time of the meeting start, there were no submitted comments for citizen comments.
We will start with presentation item 5A, which is a presentation on the temporary parklet application. I brought this item forward because I have seen the influence that it's having on business owners, on our economy, and the way that we can advocate for this. It just got extended for 120 days in this past council meeting on Monday. And I think there's some amendments that can be done, but before this group speaks out on it, we'll have a brief presentation. Building was unavailable, but we did have our economic development department step up and say that they could give us a little bit of knowledge, so we'll give you guys the floor.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may. So yes, we did reach out to the building department. They were unavailable, so we did, we're familiar with this program. It was on the agenda item for council this past Monday on the 6th that it went through because the expiration for this pilot program is December 31st. Now, for those that don't know and those that might be listening, the temporary parklet program is a program that allows citywide restaurants and bars to utilize its outdoor areas at a greater capacity in order to operate safely with adequate social distancing measures to protect their customers. So council brought this in the back end of the 2020 year to help businesses adhere to the social distancing requirements for them to be open. For that 50% requirement, they were allowed to launch this pilot program for these businesses. So this pilot program was approved by ordinance on December 2nd, 2020. The program requires an application to be submitted to the City of Laredo Building Department for review and approval. The original expiration date in the ordinance is December 31st, 2021. Approved parklets under this program are permitted from the date the permit was issued until the expiration date of December 31st. All the parklet installations must be removed on or before December 31st, 2021, and the owner of any parklet that has not removed before the due date will be subject to immediate enforcement action. Now, since this item is
Parklet, I mean, I don't understand what.
so out front of the restaurant or the bar, out where the sidewalk is into the street area.
Picture downtown, mainly.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they can put out a little area where they can have seating outside where people can sit and eat outside the establishment.
Not everybody owns
It doesn't have to be gated.
the sidewalk.
Right, yeah, I think
The
it
sidewalk
does.
is the city.
There has to be a barrier of some sort, right?
Yes, it did have to be.
It has to have a
Yeah.
barrier according
Yeah,
to
it's for safety, yes.
Or it's not TABC, no? Or who put that regulation?
The city put it up as part of their program, and I think the planning and zoning had in on it, and I think there was an issue early on where it may impede the sidewalk area. They were able to work that out.
What did planning and zoning say about this?
Well,
Do you remember if they're coming?
they approved.
They approved this pilot program.
I don't remember the comments.
So how many restaurants have you seen out there that utilize the parklets? I mean, because I could see, I guess, whenever you have a little area outdoors where you could, but if you're right there by the sidewalk.
Yeah, pardon me one second, John. Just for the record, Mr. Algood is here. So you count him present for the meeting. And Mr. Algood, we're discussing item 5A, which is the parklets, the little spaces in front of restaurants, primarily downtown, that people can use.
If I may respond to John's question.
Yes, of course.
There was a meeting that was had at the city regarding these parklets already. There are a total of 8 applicants that received the parklet ordinance, and only in the downtown, 3 were issued. The rest are kind of scattered throughout the city. From my understanding from the city, there's certain circumstances that they don't, even though they are under the parklet ordinance, they don't, they're a little confused on why they applied right now. I can tell you from the feedback that I've gotten by speaking to some of the bars in the downtown, the reason there is not more is this was a temporary ordinance. It was a temporary thing issued by the city of Laredo, and a lot of them required a significant amount of investment for them to make, not knowing if the city was going to renew this. So a lot of them are kind of just waiting to see if this actually turns into a full-blown ordinance, but there is interest in more applicants.
So now, so normally the sidewalk, which is like 6 feet wide, so I guess you put, unless there's some restaurants that have a bigger space up front, but I'm just trying to visualize it, because if you got a sidewalk of 4 feet, you're trying to put a small table. I mean, I guess people need to either go to the street to go around it. I'm just trying to visualize how
Who do you think?
It's not just for sidewalks, Julian, isn't that correct?
I don't know how to respond to that. What do you mean it's not just for sidewalks?
I mean, that parklet area is
I
not
think
just
Mr.
sidewalks.
Rocha can give us
It goes
another
into the
Yes,
park
yes,
area.
I can respond to that. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Yes, the definition of a parklet is exactly what it sounds like. A parklet, they're typically designed to take up one whole parking spot as an acreage.
Oh,
So
I'm thinking like on the
the
sidewalk,
reason-
so it's
yes,
actually.
the reason
Okay.
parklet ordinance target downtowns and why it's typically an ordinance written for urban areas is because urban areas are typically the areas that have metered parking. And what you're essentially doing is you are having an agreement with the city to take over that metered parking spot
Gotcha, okay.
for the course of the year. Or 2, so the way the Laredo ordinance is written, you can take as much as your storefront allows. So if your storefront, all that glass window area is taking up essentially 2 parking spots, you could apply for receiving both of those spots.
Yeah, see, that makes sense. For some reason, I thought since in front, maybe it was on the sidewalk, so then how are people gonna meander through the sidewalk as opposed to having it on the actual parking space where,
My experience has been that people will
through.
still keep using the sidewalks.
right,
And so it becomes an alley, or if you will, a means for, the patrons of the establishment, the wait staff, and the public in general, just kind of.
yeah, but in this case, they're gonna
Rezone.
actually be on the parking space.
Right, but there's still
front.
that common space that's used for the, the flow of the businesses' operations,
Okay.
and the public in general. I just got back from Mexico City this weekend, and parklets were, everywhere.
Yeah.
It's how people will be eating safely in the future in urbanly dense areas. It will be outside, and it will be open air, and
Yeah.
it'll.
Mr. Rocha, what's been your experience with
I can also comment to that. At Rocha's Bar and Grill, we did receive approval for a parklet. It needed approval by the buildings department and the fire department. So as long as we weren't interfering with handicap access and making sure there was adequate flow for pedestrians coming in and out of the restaurant.
Awesome.
With regard to space or the amount of space that's approved, it just depends again on something Julian had mentioned. It really depends on the space that you have in front of you. So it could be 1 space, 2 space, 3 parking spaces, whatever is in front of your, let's say, establishment, and that is allowed given the mandated or given the pilot program itself, making sure that it's approved by the fire department. There's no fire zoning issues, and pedestrians can easily come in and out of that access, of that parklet access.
So it's not just for downtown?
No, it's for the whole
No, it's for
city.
the city, yeah.
Mhm.
I will say we have benefited quite a bit. I know we seem to be on the other end of this pandemic, but there's still a lot of concern, and for a lot of people, it's something that really does make a difference. So huge difference, a huge impact for at least local businesses. I can say it's been it's been something that's helped from a revenue standpoint, especially.
What's the cost?
It's minimal. Depends on how big, well, the space that you have, and what kind of barrier you're able to put in that section as
I
well.
mean,
We'll
the
have
cost for
a-
the city.
Oh, the cost for the city. Well, I would say I wouldn't know what the cost is for the city
You
because
have
they're
to
not
pay.
providing
You have to
anything.
pay.
I don't believe there was a
No.
fee at the time. No.
What about the cost though?
There's a difference. so-
Manpower for staff to go and review and process the permit and, sign
So
off
the
on
permit
it.
is, everything's done via email electronically, and then we set an appointment with the buildings inspector and the fire department. They come in 15 minutes, make sure that you abide by the zoning, making sure you fit, ensuring that you're abiding by the certain criteria to make sure that it's appropriate and, like from a safety standpoint. After that, that's it. It's pretty painless
Is there
process.
any, so there's no fee at all to?
No, there's
No,
paperwork.
it's free. It's
Yeah.
completely free. The difference is most establishments have $1 million insurance. This requires you to have $2 to $3 million insurance.
It's two. Mhm.
Which, depending on the size of your establishment, it can be beneficial or not. I know someone in the downtown area, and tenants for Julian actually, they expanded. They spent about $4,000 because you also have to get a workers' comp, and then the process was just taking. It's supposed to be in 2 weeks, and it ended up taking about 2 months. So it's been tough, and I think some things can be changed and made better. But we'll continue on with the presentation, and then we'll enter into further discussion overall with this.
Sure. And apologies, Mr. Chairman, we're just gonna give kind of an update on the status of
Yeah.
where the program's at. But should the committee wish, at a future meeting, try to get, if you want more information on that, see what we can do about getting building to put something together.
Or if you'd like to recommend something to the council, we can definitely take that, to the council, or, you can mention that to your council members, so we're glad to do that. For instance, like, the point you just brought up, I mean, it might be free now, but let's say, it catches fire, right? There might be where the city would say, hey, well, we've got 100 this year, we should probably do something. 5, I don't think is a problem, or 8
Or
or
we
15.
may not want to put a fee at all. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe we want to incentivize
Yeah.
outdoor and open concepts
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of the mitigation of, health issues.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean-
Can I chime in on?
Go ahead, Julian.
The biggest restriction for these things, the sad part is it's not the fee. You can probably charge $100, $200, $300. It's all perfectly fine for these fees. The problem is most bars and restaurants don't have over a $2 million policy. Most have typically a $1 million policy. So that in the current ordinance, and I'm not arguing that it should be removed. I don't know. I don't know the original logic of why it's $2 to $3 million, but that is the
Yeah.
biggest restriction on any bar and restaurant that wants to apply for this. There are people that, I know 2 of the applicants applied, were ready to go, and it was that stipulation that pretty much squashed it. It doesn't matter, you can do it for free.
Yeah, so the fee was free, but they ended up paying $5,000 in the end to extend 2, 3 more tables in the outside.
So you're gonna remove parking spaces in the downtown area, which we don't have parking space downtown. So how are you gonna complement,
that's
how are you gonna complement that?
Well, that's
I
the
think
case
that's
for-
the individual cases by building. They review it. They check the zoning and they approve it or not.
And they is who? Who's they?
The building department. The building department. So the first thing they do is they check an aerial. They see your drawings. They go through your insurances, safety, risk, fire.
Yes, and I will say, like, if all that is set in place, we can't forget that, and you can exclude Rochas as well from this, but, because I'm not really trying to speak for our establishment, because I don't think that's really a fair thing to do, but a lot of businesses have really taken a hit, like, through COVID, and there hasn't been very much city assistance with that. I'm not saying there hasn't been any, but nothing significant to where you can say they come on the other end of it, come on the other end and be okay. Like businesses are still trying to make up for lost time. And this parklet has made a difference, a positive difference in trying to bring in more revenue for these local businesses. I think I'm so sorry, but going back to what Julie mentioned earlier, as far as the $2 million insurance, I think, I agree that, or I believe Julie was saying this, I don't see why it should be any higher than 1 million.
Yeah,
I don't see
I agree.
why that's necessary.
We'll look into that. I was just talking to Arnold. We'll look into it and ask why that is, and then we'll try to get an answer for you.
Is it harder to get?
And we
Is it
pass
It's more expensive.
How more,
Yeah.
how much?
Can we make a motion that they ought to
$5,000.
keep it at $1 million?
$5,000?
To me,
And
I
why
just
is it
think
taking
it's
2
overkill.
months?
Yeah.
Based on what I'm gathering, it seems it should be a checklist. Why does it take 2 months when it should be about
Well, there's a lot of questions, as Mr. Algo would know, that why certain departments take a really long time, including building.
Don't get me started.
And that's all I can say there. I know that obviously they were very short-staffed and they've been ramping up, but I don't know the real reason for that.
I can also speak to that briefly. I think that's kind of a case by case, but I'm not too sure if that's the norm because it took us a week, maybe less, to get it to that turnaround.
Everything went perfect.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that's
Yeah.
the case for everyone, but I will say that, but again, I was quite persistent. I think we have to be very persistent when it comes to certain departments, city departments, and making sure we get a quick turnaround. So it's,
When I was a council member and constituents would ask me, hey, I'm having this really difficult time getting a permit for carport or whatever, I just got to the point where I was like, you know what? Build it. Because,
Do it.
you know, mejor pedir perdón que permiso, because with this, mañana, culture, it's never gonna get done. I'd rather you be expanding the tax base now as opposed to later, because you're just gonna get buried in red tape, but I digress. So I think we should put it in a motion,
Like in a
this insurance issue.
That we recommend it,
Yeah.
but we recommended with a $1 million.
Because the reality is that they're mitigating risk by having a outdoor setting.
Right.
Now, obviously, if you wanted to do a parklet on the corner of, on the side of I-35 or the access road,
Right. I mean-
they're, the building department would, or the fire department, right, which is they're in the business of would probably shut that down. But if we're talking about, Iturbide
And it's just
or
the
some
speed of
other
the traffic, like we're here, I mean, if they're going, I mean.
things
of
are
course
in
it could go
narrow
faster.
streets, we already know.
Or your own parking lot like him.
Things are going, or your own parking lot. We know things are already moving very slow through these
Right.
spaces. So that's
I'm
one.
gonna see like a McPherson or something like that, but that's where the city comes in, look, here it's not feasible for you.
Right. That there it wouldn't work. But to the issue of parking, and we've gone round and round, I think as a city, as a council, on this issue of parking. And I think part of kind of and Julian, you're the data guy, maybe you can jump in here and kind of clear the air, but I think the analysis is that taking away on-street parking, if you do okay, so this guy's gonna pay whatever, $1.50 to park there an hour, versus the sales tax and the benefit to the local business. When you weigh the two, the elimination of the parking place in exchange for the parklet,
And the employment of people.
it's better for business. And so I think we're good on that. I mean, parking is always going to be a problem so long as we're an auto-centric, hydrocarbon-based economy. But until that's resolved, then let's encourage people to carpool, walk, ride share, use active transit, mass transit. Those are the types of policies that, as an EDAC, as a city, we should be encouraging, because there's environmental sustainability baked into that model. And since the planet is in peril, we should be adopting.
So I'd like to
those
ask Ray,
policies.
as far as the insurance, I mean, 1 million and 2 million, is it pretty, I mean, does it now outweigh even having it? I mean, is it much more expensive? Or, I mean, to me, it doesn't make any sense. Well, let's double the insurance.
Yeah, I mean, as Julian mentioned also, he knows quite a few business owners that didn't move forward because of the $2 million insurance policy. That right there tells you quite a bit. And $5,000, which is, let's say an estimate,
For
that's a lot of
tables.
money for a business that's trying to start up or struggling or just trying to stay open. Even for business that's doing well, that could be quite a bit of money, you know.
And what I saw recently with the parklets in Mexico City was, you know, you had these modular platforms that, you know, during, you know, rush hour traffic or, you know, during low times were not there. During, as far as like peak traffic times weren't there, right? It was what they call tactical urbanism. So when it's dinner time, you know, out come the modular platforms, out come the big potted plants. And it's clear, like,
Or like a barrier.
there's
between the road.
a barrier. I mean, it's not gonna, you know, completely mitigate risk. Nothing in life does, but it will certainly give a big, you know, hey, this is formidable. Don't hit it, because you've got, you know, people eating, and then at the end of the day, you know, these things can get folded back up and tucked away. Yours may be a little more permanent. I
No,
suppose.
it's also,
Okay.
it's
You
very
have to
similar
tuck
to
it away,
that.
so that's one of the
Yeah.
requirements as well.
Sure.
And my main point with bringing this item was mainly a presentation, so that the committee could find out, because a lot of us weren't even aware of the parklet pilot program. So just, hey, this is what's been going on, it got extended. If you guys wanted to act on it, bring it,
Yeah, the
review
only
the
thing
full
we can't act on it
application.
is the
This is a
agenda.
simple presentation of what it is, of the great tool that it is. But it does have some things where I believe that we can amend.
We're gonna meet
And I
again
think-
as a group before the next city council meeting anyway, isn't that correct?
Well, if I may entertain the committee on that, so the change to this program, the reason why I went to council was to extend it, right, beyond the December 31st. So the amendment in the ordinance was to extend this to coincide with the governor's declaration on the disaster for COVID-19. So that won't go before council to be introduced as ordinance until January the 18th. So if the committee wanted to make any changes to that ordinance after the fact to adjust for the insurances and for whatever else, I would suggest, you know, jumping a little bit ahead on the agenda items for the first meeting in January to be maybe after the first council meeting. So you can make that motion to bring it back to
And
council.
it's a good program, I don't see why the city wouldn't go forward with it. But I believe Julian mentioned me yesterday as I called him to go over a little bit of this, because he has some tenants who have the parklet program. And I kind of wanted to hear more feedback from what business owners were saying and talk to them personally. And he explained that there's already something in the works going on. So Julian, could you just tell the committee a little bit about that?
So yeah, I think Rafa and I just barely missed each other on this. I guess we weren't aware that anyone was working on it. But this last thing that I understood about a week ago before this council meeting, there was a meeting between the building department director, Councilman Cigarroa, and other staff that already was essentially working on writing, and the city attorney, the assistant city attorney, I think, which is already working on writing this into an actual ordinance. Now, the reason it's not an ordinance is you actually have to charge a fee, so they do have to charge a nominal fee. I think what was discussed there is just $100. They were essentially gonna write it according to what other cities have done when it comes to parklet ordinances. And once that was complete, the idea was to then have the Downtown Laredo Business Improvement District organize an official meeting to call on all the bars and restaurants that either are interested or currently have a parklet to gain some feedback from them. And then that group was then gonna turn around and provide the feedback and the recommendations to city staff, which was then gonna move on it. So from my understanding, what's already in the works, and that meeting is supposed to be January 10th. That's the running schedule for the business improvement district meeting. That hasn't been officially scheduled, but that's what's being discussed. But the idea is to, 100% get feedback from existing parklet tenants, and on top of that, anyone that's looking to create their own, because every city, they're kind of a little different. Some cities make it so extreme that you can essentially nearly build another building outside. So I know the desire from, especially the councilwoman from the district, is to mimic what New York City did, which is essentially pretty much allow them to design these very intricate, interesting little spaces outside. So that was what's currently in the works.
Plus, it's nice. It
when it
gives a
comes
lot
to
of
getting
life to the street and to the city.
Let me add to
We're
that.
having discussion or no on this?
Well, yeah, because the thing I think we need to remember is that the biggest liability that the city has is its streets. It is a depreciating asset that we pump millions of dollars into every year. And the less wear and tear on that depreciating asset or liability by vehicles, and the more it is converted for other purposes, means we're not burning the candle at both ends. As a matter of fact, it's paying dividends from both sides because we're not having to maintain it, and at the same time, it's generating money. And so the most amount of real estate that we own as a city are our streets. And when you have waded through as many Jeff Speck and Joe Minicozy lectures as I have, you understand that the conversion of that real estate into active transit and parklets, the better it is overall. And so Mexico City, New York, every city it seems like but us is doing road diets, right? Like, hey, well, we can take that lane away because the traffic counts, when you look at taking a lane away, it doesn't show a decrease in vehicles. It shows an increase in people. Mm-hmm. We want to move people. We don't want to move cars. And so when you're making this conversion and you're moving people, and because when people are moving, there's an exchange of money. When they're just in cars, siloed,
Fast.
yeah, there's no
fast.
exchange of money going down.
Even they go faster when there's two cars.
That's right. Yep. Anyway, I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Mr. Ramirez, did you want to share
Yeah.
something?
See, I wanted to, maybe we can recommend to the council, if there's an incident, then you can bump up the insurance, only if there's an incident.
And the reality, they're gonna be sort of regulating it, because they're gonna go and say, well, this one's right off McPherson Road, it's one, speed limit is 45 miles an hour, you know what, this one we passed, but this one
Yeah,
we're.
not everything will get approved. It's gotta
Right,
get.
yeah, this
yeah.
one's on a parking lot, and it's.
Well, let us find out why
So-
they made that
see-
rule to begin with. I mean, it
Right.
seems kind of arbitrary, right?
Right.
Oh, 2 million. Why not 1.2
Yeah.
or 1.9?
Yeah.
Because it
You
just
know?
Well, let's just double it,
cost.
Yeah.
But seeing the participation of the committee, and clearly we see that it's a good tool and that it can definitely help our businesses and our city life, we can bring this back either on a special meeting to provide our amendments or on our next month's meeting. But what I would
Chairman, you have a
suggest.
meeting on the 6th,
Okay,
so you can take it up then, if you'd like.
okay,
And then that's even before the next city council meeting,
all right.
so.
And we'll coordinate with Julian in regards to what the Councilwoman Roa is doing with staff, provide our amendments, see if they can give EDAC a chair at the table, and we'll share our amendments and see what they'd like to take. But what I suggest for the committee is go over the application. There's a lot of little details that once you see it come to play, listen to their business owners, listen to the people, to the community around you, hear what they're saying. There's an instance where a business owner got the parklet and he put a 6-foot furniture and completely put away the business right next door. So, hey, now we know that, okay, in our amendments, in our application, no business higher than 4 feet or things of that sort. So let's listen to what our community is saying, and we're here to be delegates of them, bring unity and start to work for our business community. And we'll put that on our next meeting.
Okay, excellent.
We'll move
have
on
that answer
to-
for you.
Well, just as a cautionary note, for those members that do have a direct or indirect interest in the passing of this pilot program or this to be ordinance, we're all required to self-police, so, if not, do your conflict disclosure, do all that, just out of an abundance of caution. I would counsel you all to, not put yourselves in a predicament.
Action item 6A is discussion with possible action regarding status for updating the Viva Laredo comprehensive plan and any other matters incident thereto.
Yes, Mr. Alba, this was something I want to, put on the agenda to bring back to you to just get some more clarification on what to send the, what the message would be to council regarding the update to the comprehensive plan. I think we were concentrating on economic development.
Right.
But it was one part where I think we said that we were going to look at areas like home health care and whatever other updates need to be made, so we can, ask the council, I believe it was, to go ahead and go back to the consultants that did the plan and have them update it, right? And I think that was the request, but I want to be sure what you were saying.
Well, yeah, so by charter, we're required to update the comprehensive plan once a year. And the last time it was updated was 2017. The time that it was updated prior to that was like 20 years before that. So, yeah, or more actually. Yeah.
94, 92.
So we've been ignoring, and I know it's selective enforcement. It's what the city does, right? But we've been ignoring our own charter as it relates to this comprehensive plan update, and it's palpable. You can go to other cities and you're like, oh my God, look at all this cool stuff they're doing. Gosh, if we could only do it here in Laredo, and we're not doing it in Laredo because there's other priorities, it's in violation of our charter to not update the comprehensive plan, because even what was working in 2017 now post-COVID may not be what needs to be being. I mean, the world changed in the blink of an eye, and so I don't know how you put it delicately to a body that has its mind made up on what is in the best interest of the city, but I think very, very bluntly, what this, and tactfully, I think what we need to say as a committee is, hey, charter requires this to be updated. Who does the updating? We can defer to them. I don't want to get into that conversation, but it needs to be updated. And very specifically, I think the update needs to have a big thrust towards diversifying our economy. We're still, by and large, a one-trick pony. It is transportation and trade and trucking and warehousing and logistics. And that's great, and that's our bread and butter.
But Mr. Dominguez said not to diversify.
No, he's never said that. We can always do it better, right?
Yes.
But we can't have all your eggs in one basket. We need to have other things going on, and so the expansion into and the development into a becoming a regional healthcare center.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like low-hanging fruit. We already have a bunch of available land, in and around the airport. There's ways through.
Well, I think what happened with UT, that's significant.
Very significant. And it's just kind of happening by inertia.
And I think, certain things happen, like we got these residency doctors to come in. I know probably Tammy Yu's also doing a lot of stuff. So.
In reality, that's thank God for Senator Zaffarini. She's like, I'm just I mean, you guys ain't gonna do it, okay, I'll do it. But imagine if we had a concerted, organized effort where, you know, city, county, the private sector, and our representation at state and local levels were actually, you know, working on this as a, you know, planning it and doing it as opposed to.
Yeah, the only thing with
ice
the
it out.
medical is that the reality is we don't have any doctors. I mean, and it's, so it's changing having quality of life
Right,
stuff here in the city where you can attract them.
Right.
Because, I mean, I think like the residency doctors, I think maybe you get one or two when they.
El Paso had a real problem with having and attracting doctors.
Yeah.
And what they did is they formed a hospital district through their county and began to capture a little tiny tax. And from there, they opened a children's hospital. And that children's hospital turned into a UTEP health, or medical school rather. And then that medical school started cranking out doctors, and then you started having, you know, all this, you know, development in the healthcare sector. And they, you know, here they were, this outpost so far from everywhere, sounds kind of familiar, and began to attract, you know, customers from Chihuahua and from southern New Mexico, and became the health center of the Americas. And it cranks out dollar bills all day long. And since, well, now there's all these doctors, right? So now your real estate brokers are now having to cater to finding doctors, not only commercial properties to set up shop, but also, you know, for their residential needs and private schools. And it's low hanging fruit.
Yeah, it's like here, we don't even have a neurologist right now, so
Yeah.
if you're in the hospital, you
We
need a
barely even
neurologist.
have a psychologist. I mean, there's a couple of them,
Psychologist,
but they're
I
booked
mean-
for the next 3 or 4 months.
Let me say a few things on that. One is, I've been to the Texas Tech Medical School in El Paso, and it is impressive. Some of their local billionaires that own refineries and other things like Monopoly Game in El Paso, they put up the money from the private sector to help Texas Tech make that decision, which was a great one, like you said, right? Now Texas Tech has a medical school, the Children's Hospital is right next door. They've got some good synergy. Same.
And then they built a regular county hospital
Right, yeah.
as
that's
well,
right.
yeah.
And the Valley has the same synergy going,
Yeah,
right?
and that's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
I mean, the Valley, I think we are more similar to the Valley.
Yeah, now,
But how many doctors do they have, I
They-
guess, per,
they were in the same position that Laredo was
they
20
just
years
got a
ago.
medical school.
Well, they just got to go to school, but they worked on that for
Regionally-
30 years to get it.
Regionally, we're more similar to RGV, but the reality is we're more similar to El Paso, because RGV, you know, it's McAllen, it's Hidalgo County, it's.
Well, they're a
it's
million, they're probably bigger, I don't know
It's
if they're
this
bigger than San Antonio, but
giant
you include
metropolis.
the whole metropolis.
1.5
Right,
million in the
we're-
Valley, not bigger than San Antonio, but 1.5 million
It's
significant.
a big market.
We're
Versus
300.
300,000.
So that's why a medical school, like for practical purposes, like UT would never build one here, or A&M. It's just that we can't support it that way. However, a health science center from A&M or UT, like the one that was just done, I remember speaking to UT Health San Antonio a year ago and just letting them know, without a plan, but just letting them know, that they just got, last year they announced a $400 million brand new hospital, a UT hospital, a real hospital, right? Not at some research place, for San Antonio. So I called my friend up and I said, hey, I go, what the F, man? You guys are getting a $4 million hospital and you can't even do one program for us? This when it was still empty. I go, that's not fair at all. And so he's, well, it's not my decision. And anyway, but it's just wrong for them to do that.
And maybe we don't need necessarily, you know, to obviously you don't bite it off, you know, the whole burger in one bite, right? But maybe in an oncology hospital,
Yeah.
with the latest data regarding incidence of cancer in Laredo, you know, maybe that's something that we need to
That all begins,
start taking a look at.
if it's with the UT or A&M systems, they begin working on their legislative requests right after the new year. and they're set on what, they know what they're gonna ask by August or September. They're set.
Are we even asking?
Well, we haven't been. No, man. I don't think the city or the county or all the players that be sit down with the systems to say, okay, what's on your agenda? What do you want? What are you gonna ask for? Because this is what we'd like you to ask for. We've never had those conversations, right? Yeah.
And the mayor, who's, God bless him, rather, adrift on the whole taxation issue, and I realize, politicians, a new tax, is like leprosy, but ultimately, the county is the one that has that jurisdiction. But if we had some council and mayoral leadership coming, out of City Hall to say, hey, commissioners, like, we're way overdue to get this done.
Yeah.
And perhaps the political cover that we might be able to provide our elected officials is, as an EDAC, we could pass a resolution in favor of a hospital district. Not just updating the comp plan, but specifically
For that, right.
for that, and how that would work, getting a pro forma. Okay, so all right, you want a hospital district, so how much extra tax is that gonna be? Okay, well, what is that gonna equal? What can you do with that revenue stream?
Right.
Okay, well, in the city of Laredo, where 30% of the city, give or take, is at or below the poverty line, right? Majority of those are single moms, struggling, raising kids, where access to quality health care, honestly, you're better off going to Nuevo Laredo.
No, and a lot of people count on that.
As we do.
Right.
Porque así te curan.
Mr. Alcott, may I make a suggestion, at least for consideration, maybe to the chairman for next meeting? Is there's a couple of things that we can do that are kind of lower hanging fruit besides the update, like you just said. One is to make a recommendation either to the council and management to ask me to get into talks with Incarnate Word. Because I've sat down with Incarnate Word twice, and I've asked them, what do you need to grow your program and keep doctors here? They said, okay, number one, we need space. And number two, we need money. And so, the students, some of the students would stay here in Laredo if there was some sort of a loan payoff program. Because most residency programs, about 70 to 80% of the students, where they're at, they stay there. But that's not the case here, right? They take off.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and I asked them directly, I asked like 6 of them, what would it take for you to stay here? They said, a loan program. We'd stay like a Teach for America kind of a thing. We'd stay 3 years, 5 years after we're done. But
That's a very good point.
But that's, if we paid each one like a grant of like 60 grand a year, right? And then they would stay here. At least that's what they say. I don't know if they make that decision. So that's one. The other one is to have some sort of action, Mr. Chairman, if that's what the committee would like. I'm just saying, hypothetically, you could say, hey, we would like the city to meet with the universities to be on the same wavelength for their legislative agenda going forward for the next year, so we get what we're supposed to get.
And to also coordinate with the county. It's those times that when I was a council member, we'd end up in DC, and we would end up literally stumbling in to county officials, also kind of.
And the private sector.
And like, there was no real concerted effort, so before I forget, for the next agenda, it would be great if we could have that conversation. What is it universities need? What is it? What is the feasibility of a hospital district?
Yeah, that might not be able to get done by the next meeting because it's on the 6th, and I think they're already off.
They're
gone for the month.
Yes, it needs to come back to the comp plan, but we're talking back to the Querétaro, Monterrey, Guadalajara. That's exactly what their universities and their local governments do. They talk to each other to develop the infrastructure of what is the community.
Right.
And then their students are immersed. You do your residencies, you do your internships with departments, and so everybody's working collaboratively to move the process.
And what about all of the medical doctors in Mexico? That they do their
We have a pre-med program.
their
Our
service,
students go to
right?
Guadalajara.
Okay, but my question is, so many of them, they complete their education in Mexico, and then they come to the States to take their board exams, right? Why would we not have some sort of a, prep program, like we'll prep you, do some of your residency here, like let's make a pipeline from Mexico. I get it, you're gonna stop here for a little bit, okay, fine. But we'll get you in,
Well,
but maybe you'll drop roots?
Exactly, that's what happens.
As so many have.
That's exactly what happens when people come here. Our
Mr.
professors come from international places,
Yeah,
come here
yeah.
just temporary, and then they stay here forever.
Mr. Chairman, again, I go, Mr. Algo.
So maybe not the next meeting, but the meeting after.
Yes, sir, and just,
Or we
we'll
can
put that down
really
as
take a
a
deep
reminder.
dive
Yeah.
into this.
Yeah.
But coming back to the agenda item,
Yes, sir.
so it's not just revisiting the comp plan, this big, general wide brush. It is also scoring, how did we do with implementing
What we did, right? What we're supposed to
what
do.
we were supposed to do,
What we
right?
planned.
Because,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna go out on a limb here, I'm gonna venture a wild guess that we would get an F for how we did on, in general. There's some things we did really good on, and there's some things we just ignored. But it's through that calculus,
Yeah.
right? Not to point the fingers or whatever.
no, I
Blame it
get
on
you,
me.
I
I'm
get
not.
you.
I'm not there anymore. But what can we learn from?
And the
how
reality, we need to be reviewing parts, on an ongoing basis.
And it might
Yeah,
not be
Quarterly,
everything. I mean,
as opposed to, well, let's do it now, let's do everything, and then shelf it. It should be
and the-
take little bites, and
Well, the
hopefully
updates
move
don't
forward.
have to
It's
be
gotta be a dynamic
the whole-
instrument.
The
not
whole
just-
thing.
No, we're talking about economic development
Specific-
here.
But the
Yeah.
specific
Right.
certain things that need to be.
Because there's some things that we're doing and we're doing well,
Facelift or
so we don't
something.
need to do a
They're
full
doing well.
remodel.
And the reality, maybe we ought to read up on it and bring it up. Hey, look, this part of the comprehensive plan on economic development, we'd like
I
to.
mean, you're right, because not only, as George said earlier, not only has it been 5 years, it's been freaking COVID. And
Right.
so we're not talking about at-home workers, we can now, all that kind of stuff. One other thing, and maybe Arnold will take this note down, or Cody for either the next meeting or the meeting after that, speaking of the legislature, see that a lot of cities are spending some of their economic development funds on partnering with the local hospitals that they have to recruit doctors. So if you do need that neurosurgeon, hey, here's $100,000 to help you make your decision, right? Or here's $200,000, right? But Laredo doesn't have an economic development fund. Why? Because we're not a 4A, 4B cities. I mean, y'all know those numbers. Those are those things. And that has to be on the legislative agenda in order for that to move.
Yeah.
So,
I 100% agree with that.
yeah,
100%.
so this committee can very well put that in there as a recommendation, as we move forward, hey, this must be on the legislative agenda, if not tops. Because we could take that money and give it to Incarnate Word. We could take that money and
As opposed to
pay their rent. We could recruit physicians. We could do all that kind of
Right.
stuff with that kind of fund.
And the conversation with my ex-colleagues on council was to, like, look, we'll keep the sports venue, okay, we won't touch that, but let's add the 4A, 4B. And of course, Governor Abbott,
But the sports venue can come under the is it the four?
No,
or the
it
four?
does, but see,
4A.
we're tapped out on taxes, right? So
Yeah, we can't add.
We can't add anymore.
But we're sitting on a $15 million
Well,
fund
yeah,
balance.
$26 million.
$26
And
million
then-
fund
and then
balance
we
that
need
we
to
can't
sunset
do
the
anything
debt.
with unless we're gonna build another
Well,
soccer
no,
field.
I think that money is gonna be zeroed out to pay for the sports park and the water park and all that. It has to be zeroed out now, because if you do make that switch, you can't have that money
you
left
can't have
over.
debt.
No, but
Right,
also
yeah.
you can't have any debt.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
So you have to
So we're-
defease
Yeah, so
all
we're
these
trying to do that
bonds.
right now in order to get to the point to ask for 4A, 4B, right?
So is council really contemplating defeasing through payment of all of?
For that segment only, I mean, for that's fine.
Because that would be, if we can defease it all
Yeah.
and then make the switch to 4A, 4B,
Yeah.
then we have meaningful economic development. So to your point, for the next, or the next agenda item, a resolution should come out of this committee that we, pay our bill, defease the sports venue, and once and for all, for the love of God, get a 4A, 4B tax going.
What they
through.
gotta understand is that you could still build sports facilities or
You can
whatever.
do it with a 4A,
under
4B.
the
That's right.
You can, that's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
You can do it for.
Here,
Here,
you're handcuffing yourself. This way, you can do not only that, but you can do.
right.
And I think it's really, even if you just go 4A, you
Right.
can do all that. 4B is like
4B is
industrial.
more, right.
You can just do that. 4A, you can do industrial, sports parks, you can have freaking fairs, as long as you're doing economic development or agitating the economy with that activity. So,
Right.
Yes. Anyway,
But
but yeah, it's a
We'll
big
bring it
deal.
back to the
plan.
item.
Yeah,
Any
so-
action that you'd like to take on?
Yeah, okay, so the action that I suggest is that we recommend that council go out for a RFQ to have some outside entity, not the city of Laredo, score our
Comprehensive plan.
our implementation of the 2017 comprehensive plan.
In regards to.
5 years, which is, you know, it's-
Right.
Are you asking them to do the whole plan or just economic development?
Um,
I mean, it's up to you. I mean,
well, so much of everything, it's because look, I think everything is economic development.
it would just take longer, obviously. if you do
yeah,
that.
because you're looking, maybe we oughta at least
okay.
to start out
You
with
may-
economic development.
Right.
Whatever you like.
I don't know,
Well, I mean, okay,
for them. to-
that's a valid point.
Yeah, I'll give a metaphor.
Let's
My mom's
limit,
been trying to remodel her whole house, and obviously that's
Yeah.
not gonna happen. So I was
Well,
like, start off.
Well, it
the
started with a
restaurant.
kitchen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
There
well,
it
let's
is.
just, look, our kitchen is economic development. So let's start off with the kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a heavy lift in and of itself. So let's get an outside entity to score how the city of Laredo has done with regard to implementation of the economic development plan within the 2017 comp plan.
Okay, yeah, we got that.
And let's figure out what we did well, what we didn't do well on, and then based on that, so that's one action item. My other action item is that we recommend, because it is all economic development, that we recommend that council follow its own city charter and update the 2017
The entire thing, right?
comprehensive plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, we got that. All right, yeah.
So I'm sorry, was it
I remember at the beginning of that plan is that if we didn't have that plan and you go ask for money, well, what's your plan? You don't even have plans as a city.
Yeah.
So that's the best way.
And we spent a
to
lot of
approach
money, we had different Angelas, like that.
Angelou, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And yeah, we spent like $660,000. And by the way,
For it to
was
sit on a shelf,
it was
gathering dust.
it was an award.
That's how you
It
line-
is.
that's how you line the resources.
It is an award-winning comprehensive plan. We were awarded for I think we took like for this region, right? I think we took for a city of our size. I think we took first place, competing with other cities. Like, it's a quality comp plan. I mean, I look back at the handful of things we did as a council, and without reservation, the one thing that I'm proudest of that we did was this comprehensive plan, because it was an all-star ensemble. I mean, imagine having like Jimmy Page, having the
Guitarist.
imagine having exactly. You're having
Jimmy
like
Page.
this all-star cast of who's who, like these rock stars, true rock stars in their fields. We had Jeff Speck. We had Angelou. We had, if I remember the guy's name, Jason from Dover Cole. Like the best of the best.
Viviana Frank.
We had Viviana and Frank Rotnowski, Mario Peña. The local talent was through the roof as well, and hence the award that we got, because it was just such a great comprehensive plan.
Mr. Chairman, so just to be sure, I want to come back with, I'm going to make this recommendation that Mr. Algut said is this action item, but then you want me to come back with.
Well, we need to vote on it first.
Okay, go ahead, and then I'll let you say the
There's a
rest.
motion by George.
Second.
There's a second by Mr. Dominguez. Any further discussion? How much do you think it'll cost the city to get this score table?
I have no idea.
Could be 50 grand, could
But
be
there are queuing, so.
80, who knows?
Yeah.
It'll probably be in that range somewhere. It's an update, like if you say an update, it's not the full-on start from scratch.
And this was calculated when council in 2017 developed the comprehensive plan to have it reviewed and spend money on it.
It's not just about an update, it's about having a scorecard that we can move forward with and have mechanisms built within the city, so as we progress, it's constantly updating. I don't think we ever implemented that in the creation of the comprehensive plan. There's no strategy on how to constantly intake all that data from everything the city does. That's what,
So
it's not just one business update, because it's gonna be throwing away all that money. It's about building the mechanism so we can constantly update it real time.
How could we do that?
It's internal, it's an
Aside from-
internal review, that's the way they're supposed to do their funding, their annual assessment, so they can align their budget accordingly based on the action plan, and that's internally, they're supposed to be updating it, I don't think you need to do it
Exactly.
external.
Because George's
consultation.
motion was to outsource.
That would be 5-10 year consultation.
Well, it's just that we hadn't done it in 5 years, and I think his point is, we just can't do an internal one, as if we were doing it every year, then we caught
Too
up,
many
we
years
knew
have
what we were
passed.
doing, yeah,
You're
too many
doing
years have
too many
passed.
years have passed. You need to
Yeah.
bring some
It's
money.
too late for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
We need to start up.
Yep.
And to put it in context, the utilities department had briefly implemented a asset management system just to figure out, okay, well, how much does it cost us to fix that water leak, right, or that sewage leak? And what can we do through preventative maintenance to avoid that, and what's the cost benefit ratio? And then they ultimately abandoned it. It was supposed to be implemented, not just in that one department within the utilities department. It was supposed to go department-wide, and then Parks was supposed to adopt it, and it went nowhere.
And then people leave, and we're not following up with
Turnaround
them, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
and to be clear, every day at the city of Laredo, perhaps present company excluded, perhaps, every day is a Chinese fire drill, right? It's like red light, and then, you know, everybody gets out of the car.
Yeah.
And the green light,
No,
and then
that's right.
as many people get back in the car as they can, and not everybody gets back in the car, right? Like
Especially
it's,
when there's no parking space.
and it's just like one emergency. There is no real.
There's no organization.
You react as opposed to act.
Right,
It's an
right.
organizational issue.
Right. If you ran your department at the bank like this, you would be fired. Your business would be tanked, and so would mine. Like it's anyway. So that's why us private sector guys get to show up to the party.
There's a motion, there's a second. I think we've had enough
Discussion.
enough good discussion.
There was two items. That was
I just want to say one thing. I think it's and starting with me, I'll point the finger at me, is we need to start looking at the comprehensive plan and looking at items that we want to bring up to this committee.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we can do a lot by just going and reviewing the plan. So I challenge everybody that maybe we can bring something up.
It's kind of like
It's
like the Bible, you
Yeah.
know. And it's interesting because you could
Well,
randomly
not
How
necessarily.
many times have you opened it?
you could randomly open the Bible, and wherever you
Padre
landed,
nuestro y el Ave María.
there's a good. You could randomly open the Bible wherever you do. There's a good message there, right? You could randomly open the comp plan, and then you would be like, God, why aren't we doing
Yeah,
that?
that's right.
But anyway, so
I think the outsourcing is a good start. I think it's good for where we're at right now. In 2017, we didn't even have an economic development department, but definitely start to make it. See if we can.
that was one of the comp plan recommendations.
Yeah, it was, yes.
And
it was,
so we're,
yes.
you know,
It's on the chain.
Internalize it and then constantly be reviewing and working.
So your motion is still out there?
His motion is
here's-
out there.
okay.
1 second.
Second.
There's seconded, the first one. Discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? No
Aye.
against? Mr. Algilt's second motion, can you repeat?
Yeah,
that,
for the record,
please?
the second motion was to recommend the council to follow their own city charter and update the entire 2017 comprehensive plan.
Okay, there's a motion, is there a second?
Through an RFQ.
Well, the first motion,
No, first motion was with the RFQ
Yeah,
source.
Yeah, I think we should do RFQ, obviously.
For
I mean,
the
they
second, we
can,
can put that in there.
yeah, just,
Amend it? Okay, second by Mayra Hernandez, discussion. None heard, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? None
Aye.
against, motion carries unanimously.
and when y'all report to, the council, would you make note that it was unanimous on,
Yes,
as to both
yes,
of
and
those?
we've done it before, yeah,
And-
for
and-
sure.
Would it be a stretch to say, unanimous and, passionately passed, or maybe there's a better word? Is that,
And put some hot sauce
is that a little too far, Myra? What word would you?
Unanimously, would be.
Okay, all right.
Super
There's one last item on the agenda, but I just apologize that Arlen and I, he has an appointment with the new chamber president, and I'm supposed to be online right now for our weather consultant, but yeah, we have one last item.
We have the
to deal with.
dates, it's action 6B, discussion of possible action to approve proposed committee dates for next year.
Can I,
Is that
Yeah.
here somewhere?
Yeah,
Yes, it's in your
I saw it, is there a way that we do, the January 6th remains, but then everything else changes to the second Thursday, because I saw the dates and.
Second. I second your
Make more
motion.
safe,
Motion second.
with the
Whatever
exception of
y'all-
January,
yeah.
January is the 6th, so we can
Whatever
present
y'all
them
would like to
together.
do, that's
It's
fine.
okay with
There's a
me.
motion to move aside from the first meeting, every other meeting to the second Thursday, so they're all in
Are there any
alignment.
holidays that you checked?
That's what I
anything
checked.
that-
And that's why I'm saying,
You're
just
okay
keep
with that?
everything in the
Perfect.
second.
Okay.
There's a motion, there's a second, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? None against?
And Mr. Chairman, and I'm coming back.
Passes
I'm-
passionately.
I'm coming back with you on with the 4A, 4B, and then also, I believe I have here in my notes that, with the idea also to figure out how we can communicate better with
Yeah.
the universities and us and the county,
We have a
everybody else
representative
from those issues,
from County
right?
with us,
Yes, okay.
more than willing.
And the feasibility
If
of
we schedule
a
accordingly.
hospital district.
Yeah, I think that's been already discussed, and I think the mayor and the council took that up. And I think, as you correctly pointed to, was the tax issue. Now, that failed twice in the valley, here in recent history. It just depends. Midland has a tax district, and that's super conservative, or hospital district, super conservative town. Yeah.
You can get a hospital district done in Midland.
Well, I probably did it
Get it done
34
anywhere.
years ago.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't do it now. Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
thank you, everyone.
All those in favor? Aye, none against? Motion carries, we are adjourned. Thank you all so much for everything.
Information on the
2021
Also,
is done. We'll see you guys next year.
Thank you. Have a happy holiday, everyone.
Likewise.
Can I take a picture with you, Neil? Yes, sir. Feeling better?
Yeah. Back from the dead.
Good.
How's everything over there in your area?
It's going okay.
Eduardo's?
Is there another meeting going on?
Yes. I don't know the